In 1892, the painting Distribution of Supplies was unveiled to the public. It depicts a Russian village with log houses, a church, and many local residents. In the center, a horse-drawn carriage rushes down the road. Yet one detail is puzzling. Why is the woman on the wagon waving an American flag, and why are the peasants cheering, some even falling to their knees at the sight of it? What is actually happening in this painting? Why were Russians, at the end of the 19th century, grateful to Americans? And why was this painting later banned in Russia? The painting was created by the renowned artist Ivan Ivazovsky, widely known as a brilliant marine painter. Ivan Ivazovsky, a Russian artist of Armenian origin, is among the most celebrated painters of the 19th century. He became famous for his striking seascapes, in which he captured light, the movement of waves, and the atmosphere of the sea with remarkable precision and poetic depth. He created more than 6,000 works. He served as the official painter of the main naval staff, traveled extensively, and worked almost until the end of his life. His paintings became symbols of the romantic vision of the sea and are still considered masterpieces. Yet Ivazovsky painted not only seascapes. Among his other remarkable works is the Distribution of Supplies, completed in 1892. History often presents events that people prefer not to speak about. For example, Russian history rarely mentions the famine of 1891-1892, which devastated the Volga region and the Black Earth provinces. In 1891, a crop failure struck 17 European provinces of the Russian Empire. When peasants in the Black Earth region and the Volga area ran out of grain, famine and epidemics broke out. During 1891-1892, around 400,000 people in the affected regions died from malnutrition and disease. This number may seem modest compared to the tragedies of the 20th century, when Russian and Ukrainian peasants were driven to cannibalism and died by the millions. Yet during the late reign of Alexander III, the famine czar became one of the most pressing issues of public concern. Government authority was severely undermined by the sluggishness and incompetence of imperial officials. People suffered terribly from hunger, sometimes entire families and villages dying out. Emperor Alexander III denied that a famine existed, insisting, "I have no starving subjects, only those who have suffered from a poor harvest." The consequences of the crop failure would have been far worse if not for substantial aid arriving from abroad. Although the government attempted to suppress information about the famine, word spread quickly across Europe and even to the United States, which decided to help starving Russians. News of the Russian famine sparked a powerful philanthropic movement in the US, a country that was already ahead of the world in economic development. Historians emphasize the important role of William Edgar, editor of the Northwestern Miller. As early as August 1891, when the famine had only begun, he published articles calling on Americans to help. To critics who objected to supporting a despotic regime, Edgar replied, "This is not a political question. It is a question of humanity. We know that 20 million peasants are dying of hunger. That is enough." Mass fundraising for Russia began in December 1891. Throughout the winter, more and more organizations joined the effort, including the American Red Cross and the newly formed National Committee for the Relief of Russian Famine Sufferers, created in January 1892. Collection centers for food supplies were set up in 4 states: New York, Minnesota, Pennsylvania, and Iowa. Ordinary Americans decided to rescue the starving peasants of the Russian Empire with their own hands. The movement rallied around the slogan, "This is not a political question, it is a question of humanity." Between February and July 1892, the United States sent 5 steamships loaded with food, wheat and corn, to Russia. The first vessels, Indiana and Missouri, part of the so-called famine fleet, arrived at the ports of Libau and Riga. Ivazovsky personally witnessed the arrival of these ships with their long-awaited cargo, which helped alleviate a catastrophic situation for the country. The steamships were welcomed with orchestras. The freight wagons carrying aid across the empire were decorated with American and Russian flags. The scene made a deep impression on Ivazovsky, and under the emotional impact of this wave of gratitude and hope, he immortalized it in two paintings: the relief ship and the distribution of supplies. Initially, the imperial government accepted Western initiatives with great reluctance. According to diplomat Vladimir Lambsdorff, officials did not want either to accept money or to allow foreign philanthropists into the country. Ministers apparently feared that humanitarian aid would become entangled with political demands, particularly regarding the rights of Russian Jews, a topic actively discussed in American newspapers at the time. Yet the government lacked sufficient resources to feed the starving population, and eventually St. Petersburg was forced to give in. By rough estimates, around 10,000 tons of essential supplies were delivered to the Russian Empire. In addition, Americans sent $150,000 for purchasing food directly in Russia. The relief caravans traveled across the country under billowing American flags, and it was precisely this moment that Aivazovsky chose to depict. In the painting, we see a 3-horse carriage loaded with food. A woman stands atop it, proudly waving the American flag. Villagers wave their scarves and hats in return, and some drop to their knees, praying to God. When convoys of grain and flour reach starving communities, scenes like this were not uncommon. The painting captures extraordinary joy, excitement, and the desperate anticipation of hungry people. Naturally, the peasants kneeling were not worshipping the flag. They were thanking God for the kindness of strangers. Ivazovsky was determined to preserve this historical moment on canvas, and not without reason, for the painting is truly striking. Yet such a subject could not fail to irritate the authorities. What government would welcome the sight of a Russian peasant riding a Russian troika while proudly waving an American flag? Both the relief ship and the distribution of supplies were strictly banned in the Russian Empire. Emperor Alexander III was unwilling to be reminded that he had allowed his own people to starve. However, his successor, Nicholas II, later spoke favorably about American assistance and thanked US citizens for their support. In October 1892, Ivazovsky personally traveled to the United States. He donated the distribution of supplies and the relief ship to the Corcoran Gallery of Art in Washington. In a letter accompanying the gift, the artist wrote that he sought to express the heartfelt gratitude of the people of my homeland for the generous and swift aid rendered by the government of the United States. Remarkably, during the presidency of John Kennedy, who wished to improve relations with the USSR, these paintings hung in one of the White House offices. Both works were sold at Sotheby's in 2008 for $2.4 million to a patron who immediately donated them to the Corcoran Gallery, where they remain today. Today, this painting continues to resonate, filling viewers with the same sense of hope once felt by the peasants who first saw the long-awaited wagons of bread. Without Ivazovsky's brush, this episode might have dissolved unnoticed into history, yet the artist preserved it for eternity. If you enjoyed this analysis, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell so you don't miss new stories from the world of art and forgotten pages of the past.